Leave it to Taika Waititi to give us another awesome MCU movie. Thor: Love and Thunder is the fourth Thor movie, and it stars Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson, and Christian Bale. It tells the story of Thor enlisting the help of Valkyrie, Korg, and ex-girlfriend Jane Foster to fight Gorr the God Butcher, who intends to make the gods extinct. And this is one of my more anticipated movies of the year, as I am a huge MCU fan. But not only that, you have Natalie Portman, who is arguably my favorite actress ever. In this movie, she's returning to the Thor franchise and the MCU franchise. That gets me excited. Plus, the icing on the cake, you have Christian Bale as Gorr the God Butcher, who is returning to the comic book movie genre. He once said he was done with these movies, but leave it to Taika Waititi and Marvel Studios to bring him back to the genre. And man, this movie was such a fun time. I had a blast with this one. I'll start off by talking about the characters. You have Chris Hemsworth, who playing Thor himself. And now I will be straight up with you. I have never been the hugest fan of the Thor character. Nothing about the character has ever really gravitated myself towards him. I've always thought he was good. I enjoyed his comedic relief. And then when they brought him to Thor Ragnarok, they kind of reinvented the character. That's where I started to get a more of appreciation for him. But in this movie is where I finally became to love the character. I can finally say now that I really enjoy this character. Chris Hemsworth is perfect as Thor himself. I can't really see anyone else playing the role, and that's how you know that he's doing a good job. He's gotten more depth as the movies have gone on, but in this movie, there was emotional weight to his character. In the story, there's some weight to it, there's emotion, and Chris Hemsworth brings it to the role. My favorite, Natalie Portman, man, it was so good to see her on screen. She is so badass. I will admit, I wasn't fully won over by her performance at the beginning. Then there's one scene in particular, which I will talk about more later in the review, that kind of was the turning point for the rest of the movie for me. And the relationship between her and Thor, which slowly over the course of the movie just gets expanded on, and you get the emotional attachment to the relationship. I felt for these two characters and the relationship that they were building on screen. Korg, per usual, was great. He is the comedic relief of these movies, and he was so fun to see on screen. And Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, which is yet again another character that I've never loved. I've always thought she's been fine. Her character here gets more depth, and it gets expanded upon. It's just I'm gonna be saying that a lot in this video. A lot of things get expanded on in this movie, and her character is one of those things, and she has now depth to her character. You learn about the past relationships she might have had, that still affects her to this day, and I fell for her character. I like that they brought more to her. But Christian Bale as Gorr was terrifying. If you watch my trailer reacting to the official trailer for Thor: Love and Thunder, you will see my reaction to seeing Gorr for the first time. I was shocked. My jaw was on the floor. He looked so creepy, and I was looking forward to see what they were going to do with the character. And while maybe you could have added one or two more scenes with him just to make him that much more terrifying, for what they gave us, I was still very much so intimidated by his character. He is creepy. I would personally say that he has that effect on the audience where he commands the screen. You are just so locked in whatever he's saying or whatever he's conveying. He is arguably one of the best MCU villains we've seen, and I was really satisfied to see what they did with all these characters. And now I just want to say, this movie is silly. If you didn't love Thor Ragnarok, you're probably not going to really enjoy this movie either. Taika Waititi's style is either going to really work for you or not work for you at all. For me, luckily, it works. I saw a couple people describing this as a Saturday morning cartoon-esque kind of movie, and I'll flat out say it, I enjoy that we have these kind of movies in the MCU. I'm glad that in this humongous franchise now, you can have different types of movies. You can have your comedies, and in this, you get some romance too. The different kinds of movies like we've seen earlier this year with Multiverse of Madness. You have the horror movies. You have your big, epic, grand scale movies with Endgame. Then you can have stuff with this, a movie that is going to have depth to it. It's not going to be just total a popcorn flick. There is more to it. But it is one of those movies that you can have a fun time with. I can totally see myself revisiting this one very often. So it's silly, but it's so badass. It's badass because of the action sequences, which were awesome. I thought all of them were terrific, but there's one in particular at the end, kind of the big epic finale. I not only loved how they used the use of color, and you can see it in the trailers, there's that black and white scene. That's what I'm talking about. You get these big action sequences that are going to have you on the edge of your seat, kind of cheering in your seat too. This movie is going to have you emotionally invested, being excited, and bringing out the emotions, the sadness, the worry, the angst. Taika just does a great job at bringing out all the emotions for the audience. Very similar to Ragnarok, this is a fast-paced movie. The movie gets going very quickly, and by the time you get to the third act, it doesn't feel like it's been that long of a runtime. This is movie, the 2-hour runtime, it works. I know there were a lot of people that were skeptical about that. There was a side of the people that were like, oh, we needed more, or oh, we need less. There's always going to be the two sides of the scale with the runtimes in movies, and I feel like this movie, for the runtime it gives us, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and I do feel like it expanded upon everything that it needed to. I wasn't looking for more. I wouldn't have been opposed to having more. The runtime works, and that's why I can see it being rewatchable, a movie that you can put on and just kind of get sucked into and just let the world pass you by. When talking about Ragnarok, you have both movies that are both very much so comedies. That is Taika Waititi. He's gonna have the heartfelt moments and he's gonna have the hilarious moments. And this movie has both of those. I will say he does a great job at juggling the both of those. Near perfectly, I might say. There might have been a couple jokes that didn't land as hard as some of the other ones, but for the majority of this movie, I was laughing out loud. But I think Ragnarok may be just a little bit more funny. I think if you were a fan of Ragnarok and you loved the comedy, you might be disappointed in that aspect because Ragnarok maybe would have made you laugh more. But this movie has comedy, but it also brings heart. I know there definitely are people out there that were complaining about the lack of depth to the story. When comparing this to Ragnarok, Ragnarok doesn't have as many moments that'll bring out the emotions. The big emotion you're gonna have when watching Ragnarok is laughter. This one brings out both the comedy and the heart. It tells a really profound story about finding love and one's meaning, and also about finding love within oneself. Thor definitely goes on this journey. He's trying to find purpose. And in trying to find purpose, he gets reconnected with his past, being Jane. And I'll let you watch the rest of the movie for yourself, but the journey that Thor goes on is pretty beautiful. That just goes back to the relationship too within Thor and Jane. Just how that ties into finding love and love within oneself. It's superb stuff. I forgot to mention it too, but the goats that kind of lead the ship, there's another thing that's either going to really work for you or not going to work for you at all. You're going to find them either totally annoying or hilarious. I thought they were hilarious and they were the standout. They were just so funny and all they did was just bah. I guess that just goes to show you how well written this movie is. I talked about how there was a big chunk of the movie where I wasn't loving it. I was definitely enjoying it. I was just going to come out of the movie maybe slightly underwhelmed, but then there's this turning point in the movie for me. There's one scene where Natalie Portman reveals something to Chris Hemsworth about her character and her future that for whatever reason made everything kind of click for me. I wasn't loving her performance, but in that scene, she won me over. I felt the movie was lacking heart before that, but in that scene, I was like, oh, there it is. And it happened at just the perfect time in the movie to really just get me over that ledge, and I finally loved it. I'm sure you're all wondering about the post-credit scenes and the end credit scene. And to clarify, there are two, one post-credit, one end credit. I obviously will not get into what those scenes hold, but the post-credit scene is pretty crazy. What it holds for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe gets me very excited. And the end credit scene had me excited because I have hope for what they can do with something in the future. I'm being very vague. I don't want to get into specifics about what that holds, but it opens the door for something to have a future in the MCU. But I think many other people might be disappointed about it, and I have already seen people on Twitter complaining about it kind of retconning a scene in the movie. But all in all, this movie is a rockin' fun time. Brings out all the emotions. It's heartfelt. It's funny. It's thrilling at times. All the emotions are brought out in this movie. It's fast-paced, so it's an easy turn your brain off for 2 hours, have a fun time with it. And that also even adds to the rewatchability factor. The action sequences, Taika's directing, performance as Korg, and writing, that's a big trifecta that just brings it. All the characters and all the performances. I don't really have anyone to particularly point out because Portman, Bale, Hemsworth, Thompson, Waititi, they are all excellent. All the characters get depth or even more depth. You're gonna be so invested that by the time the credits start to roll, you'll be like, wait, the movie's over? I think that just goes to show you how much of an enjoyable watch this is. I'm gonna give Thor Love and Thunder an A-. Look, I thought this was a blast, but if you didn't like it, I can totally see it. Let me know your thoughts on the movie down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? I want to hear all of that and more down below. And thank you so much for watching this video, and if you did enjoy it, consider giving it a like as well as subscribing and hitting that notification bell to be notified whenever new videos like this go live. Look forward to my ranking of all the 4 Thor movies coming soon. Thank you again for watching. My name is Ben, people call me Meter, and I'll see you guys in the next one.